We've all heard it before. Content is king. It's the name of the game in 2025. If you're not doing content right, you're probably not doing your marketing right. But the thing is when you're expected to be doing that much content, obviously you're gonna burn out. Unless your entire job is content creation, it's probably not your priority. But if you're a founder or entrepreneur, you really need to make it one. But I have some good news for you, because I have a method that's going to make your life a million times easier. What if I told you if you spent a couple of hours a week creating one really good piece of content, you could then turn that into 20 plus pieces of content that span across your entire marketing channels. This is called the Content Flywheel Method. So you're probably wondering, what exactly is this content flywheel? If you're not familiar with the idea of a flywheel, it's basically the idea that it's a wheel that gets rolling, and over time, it just creates its own momentum and it keeps going. This is what we want to do with your content. So a content flywheel is basically a self-sustaining content engine for your business. Once it's going, you have things out in the world that will continue to generate leads for you. So think of it this way. Once the flywheel's in motion, you can't be stopped. So first up, we need to talk about the big piece of content. This is the one thing that you're going to craft at the beginning of the week that's going to fuel the rest of the content that will hit across your newsletters, your Instagram, your blog posts, etc. So you want to focus first up on your big piece of content. That's going to be long form. So think about, a YouTube video, a podcast, a long form blog post. I personally would recommend either a podcast or a YouTube video, because in the age of video, it's easier to cut all those things up and spread them across Instagram, TikTok, YouTube Shorts, etc. And then you can take that transcript and feed it off into the AI engines to create you blog posts, newsletters, etc. So the thing about this big piece of content is that you want to make sure you're spending adequate time on it. This is something that you don't just want to throw together in an afternoon. You probably want to spend a good couple of hours researching and scripting it, and then sit yourself down and film that. If the idea of doing this every single week sounds daunting to you, then I would consider trying to batch these into one single day. So if you are concerned about getting your studio set up, getting your filming equipment out, setting up your lighting, etc., do all your research ahead of time, and then have 3 episodes that you just batch out super quick, one after the other, on your content creation day. And then you have those in the can. You can sit back, edit them, and get them all scheduled out for the month, and then you don't have to think about it again until next month. The most important part here, though, is to make sure that there's value that you're giving to your audience in this. This goes back to almost anything you've probably seen about content creation, that you need to be giving your audience something because they're going to give you their time in return, especially if you then want them to turn into leads and potential clients down the road. This content needs to be packed full of as much value as you can possibly throw in there. So the exciting part now is you can take that video you just created and throw it out into the universe, into every single social media platform you can possibly imagine. Take this video, for example. I'm explaining the content flywheel to you. Now I can then feed it into AI engines if I want, or I can do it manually myself, and I can pull out key moments that I think are going to speak to my audience. They might just be small little snippets, but A, it can drive them back to your main piece of content. B, you'll be hitting people where they're at. So your customers might not always be on YouTube. They might not always be on LinkedIn. They might not always be on Instagram. But with this big piece of content, you can figure out how to take what you said and change the wording, change the tone, change the vibe, so that it then speaks to your audience where they're at. This video maybe speaks more to content creators specifically, more than it speaks to entrepreneurs. But I could take parts of this video and adjust my tone, take the expertise that I've already started talking about, and create a LinkedIn text post that'll speak more to entrepreneurs, founders, and CEOs, the people that are running the business, maybe tired of this whole idea of that they need to be the brand, and they are having a hard time navigating it. But now I can take that, change out the wording a little bit, throw it out on LinkedIn, but the same stuff still applies. This is also where AI can be really, really helpful for you. Doing things like feeding your transcript into ChatGPT, Claude, whatever your favorite AI system is, they can then take that and run with it. So you can say, hey, pull me out the 10 best spots that are in this video for Instagram Reels. AI's trained to try to understand where those key moments are. It knows where hooks are. It knows the kind of language that speaks to an Instagram audience. So it'll give you timestamps of spots that you can then pull out and throw out on Instagram. You can take it one step further if you wanted to write your captions, etc. I would say keep some of your own voice in there, but we're talking about making things easy for you. So if that works for you, then do it, no judgment. And then one of my favorite things to do is take the transcript, feed it into AI, and tell it to write a blog post based on your expertise. Really, it's taking the language that you've already used, so it's still authentically yours, but it's just repackaging it and repurposing it for your blog post audience. So that then is driving up your SEO on your website as well, not just what's going on your social platforms. So the most important thing though with all of this, and what I've kind of already touched on, is the fact that you need to tailor it to each specific audience. You can't just slice and dice your YouTube video and throw it out onto TikTok, because I can honestly say that 90% of what I'm saying in this video would not resonate on TikTok. It wouldn't do well because that's not where this kind of audience is. And I recognize that. But maybe there's ways that I can take what I've talked about, script it out very quickly into just a sit and chat in the car kind of video for my TikTok audience. There's different ways that you have to kind of consider what's going to land on each platform. But because you've already done the research, you've scripted out the ideas, you've done kind of that initial talking and kind of getting things out there, it's easier to then repurpose it for these other platforms, even if you need to re-record a few things here and there. So just remember, Instagram loves quirky, short, and fun. LinkedIn loves professional, very targeted insights for your network. And TikTok is punchy, more casual, and a lot of fun as well. So keep all those insights in mind when you're putting all these things together. So here's the thing. Once in a while, you do get a long form video that is chock full of beautiful things that you can then cut up and sprinkle around to your audiences as you see fit. But sometimes it just doesn't hit as hard. So I would recommend, when you do have these kind of really hard-hitting pieces that do really, really well, find as many extra clips as you can and keep those in your back pocket for the future. Not only does that make your life easier down the road if you do have kind of a video that flops or an article that flops, but it does make it easier to still have something from the flywheel keeping the momentum going. So say you did, top 10 tips on how to start a podcast, for an example, and that did so well, and you had some great insights and great content. Just because it did really, really well, at the beginning of this month, doesn't mean in 2 months it won't resonate. It probably still will. So don't be shy about taking some of that content and still putting it out 2 months, 3 months, 4 months down the road, as long as it's still relevant information, because it can bring your audience back to that original piece of content that's still highly relevant and still performing well and still very valuable. And you might be afraid of repeating yourself, but honestly, we've got goldfish brains. I see 10, 20,000 different posts in a day. Chances are I probably don't remember what you posted 3 months ago. And even if I did, it's probably because it was a really, really good piece of content and I wouldn't necessarily mind a reminder. So don't feel bad about repurposing this content as long as it stays relevant. We're in it for the long game. We're in it to keep that flywheel going, to keep the momentum going. And with this system, it makes it easier than ever. So next time you're building out your content calendar or your marketing strategy for the next few months, don't think about, oh, I'm so stressed, I have 20 pieces of content I need to create. For the next month, think about 4 pieces of content you need to create, because those 4 ideas you have will then become that flywheel that will keep those 4 pieces of content going for months to come. And when you're creating that content calendar, don't be afraid to go back in time and repost some of your old stuff. It'll make your life so much easier, and trust me, no one will notice or care. So that's the Content Flywheel Method. I hope that you learned something valuable here. If you did, please like and subscribe. And I hope you'll be back for more fun from Next Batch Studio with me. Steph.